Evan Rowe wiped the grease from his hands onto his already filthy coveralls and stared at the creature sitting in the cargo bay of his dilapidated workshop. The albino leopard-like alien glared back at him with eyes that shimmered like liquid mercury, its pearl-white fur catching the dim overhead lights in an almost ethereal glow. "You've got to be kidding me," Evan muttered, reading the datapad for the third time. According to the inheritance documents, his late uncle, a cargo hauler he'd met exactly twice, had left him this companion animal, along with a mountain of unpaid debts. The creature, identified only as Sivra in the documentation, released a low, rumbling growl that made Evan's bones vibrate. Its tail, tipped with crystalline spines, lashed back and forth in obvious irritation. "Yeah, I'm not thrilled about this either, buddy," Evan said, tossing the pad onto his workbench. He ran a hand through his dark hair, leaving a streak of engine oil across his forehead. Another mouth to feed was the last thing he needed. His mechanic business barely kept him fed, and the station authority was already threatening to revoke his bay license for late payments. Sivra stood, stretching with feline grace, and Evan noticed the creature was easily the size of an earth tiger. Its muscles rippled beneath that snow-white coat, and when it yawned, he caught sight of teeth that could tear through titanium plating. Great, a grumpy alien murder cat. Just what I always wanted. The following weeks were a study in mutual disdain. Sivra refused to eat the standard nutrient blocks Evan could afford, turning up its nose at everything he offered. The creature spent most of its time perched on the highest shelf in the workshop, watching Evan work with those unsettling mercury eyes. "You know, you could at least pretend to be useful," Evan grumbled one evening, struggling with a particularly stubborn fusion coupling. He'd been working on the same freighter engine for 6 hours and his back was screaming in protest. Sivra's ear twitched, but otherwise the creature remained motionless. Evan was about to give up for the night when 3 figures entered his workshop without knocking. He recognized the type immediately, station enforcers, but not the official kind. These were the sort employed by people who didn't bother with paperwork. "Evan Rowe?" the lead enforcer asked, though his tone made it clear he already knew the answer. "Depends on who's asking," Evan replied, slowly setting down his tools. "Someone who's very interested in a certain animal that came into your possession recently." The enforcer's hand drifted toward the plasma pistol on his hip. "The consortium has been looking for that creature. You're going to hand it over and we'll forget you ever had it." Evan's stomach dropped. The consortium, a criminal syndicate that controlled half the station's black market. Whatever Sivra was, it was worth more than a simple companion animal. "I don't know what you're—" The enforcer's patience evaporated. He drew his weapon. What happened next occurred faster than Evan's eyes could fully process. Sivra launched from the shelf like a white lightning bolt, covering the 15-meter distance in a heartbeat. The first enforcer went down with a scream, his weapon clattering away. The second managed to fire a shot that scorched the wall, but Sivra was already on him, those crystalline tail spines glowing with an inner light. The third enforcer ran. Evan stood frozen, his heart hammering against his ribs. Sivra sat calmly among the groaning enforcers, licking one paw as if nothing extraordinary had happened. What are you?" Evan whispered. Before Sivra could respond, not that Evan expected an answer, his workshop's communication terminal blazed to life. The holographic display showed a woman's face, regal and sharp-featured, with skin that held a faint violet hue. "Mr. Rowe," the woman said, her voice carrying an authority that made Evan stand straighter instinctively. "I am Empress Caltress of the Valoran Empire. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Evan's mind reeled. Empress? Empire? He glanced at Sivra, who had stopped grooming and was now staring at the hologram with what could only be described as recognition. "That creature is my bonded guardian, Sivra," the Empress continued. "She was stolen 3 months ago by consortium operatives who believed they could use her to leverage concessions from my government. Your uncle intercepted the transport ship and freed her, though he paid for that heroism with his life." Evan felt his throat tighten. His uncle had died saving this creature, saving Sivra. "I have been searching for her ever since," Caltress said, her expression softening slightly. "Mr. Rowe, I am prepared to offer you substantial compensation for Sivra's safe return, as well as clear all debts in your uncle's name." It was everything Evan needed. More than enough to save his business, to finally get ahead instead of constantly drowning. He looked at Sivra, who gazed back at him with those mercury eyes. The creature had been nothing but trouble. Grumpy, expensive to feed, and apparently a magnet for violent criminals. The logical choice was obvious. "With respect, Your Majesty," Evan heard himself saying, "Sivra was left to me. If she wants to go back to you, that's her choice. But I won't force her." The Empress's eyebrows rose in surprise. Sivra's tail swished once, twice. Then the creature stood and walked over to Evan, pressing its massive head against his leg with a rumbling purr that he'd never heard before. Empress Caltress smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "It appears Sivra has made her choice, Mr. Rowe. A bonded guardian chooses their companion as much as they are chosen. She has selected you." "Wait, what does that—" "It means, Mr. Rowe, that you are now under the protection of the Valoran Empire. Your station will receive full diplomatic status, and you will serve as Sivra's keeper and, if you accept, as my eyes and ears in this sector." The Empress leaned forward. "Humanity has always intrigued me. You survive in impossible situations, adapt where others perish, and show loyalty even when it costs you everything. Perhaps it is time the Empire had a human ally." Evan looked down at Sivra, who blinked slowly at him, the feline equivalent of trust. "I guess I'm going to need a bigger workshop," he said. The Empress laughed, and for the first time in years, Evan Rowe felt like maybe, just maybe, his luck was finally changing, all because of one grumpy albino leopard who had somehow chosen him.